It's great to have you back for another installment of Trinity Western University's Innovation Series. I have 3 instructions before we all get started. First, as is our tradition, let's get to know each other by typing your name and location in the chat box. Feel free to chat throughout this session in the spirit of collaboration. Let's also welcome those joining us for the first time. Let us know who you are in the collaborative space. Second, the Q&A portal will be enabled during the talk for today's session, which will be followed by an interview with the speaker. As we move towards the interview, we will select a few questions from the Q&A section and have them discussed by our speaker. You may include your email along with your query, and if we're not able to answer your questions live, we will have a response for you later on. You will also be able to add your comments and views to the questions in the Q&A portal. We welcome everyone's input. And third, please provide feedback in our poll at the end of the session today so that we can keep improving these sessions. Welcome to the Innovation Space. My name is Sushil Rajaratnam, and I'm the project strategist of the Innovation Series, and it's my privilege to welcome you all today. As we continue to converse on the theme of collaborating across teams, we focus today on the need to scale up this model of innovation and going international. As we forge strong partnerships around the globe, we see that the power of cross-cultural collaborative efforts takes time to root and flourish. It's been no doubt a challenging road to go into the unknown and understand our clients' needs to create innovative and custom solutions to suit the ever-changing education trends. The global pandemic has certainly made this process more difficult, but this is what innovation is about. An idea that stems from one individual is a catalyst to many more ideas that drive rounds of innovation before the ultimate new vision is realized. But this process of iterative development is necessary. In this new season, we know that innovation will stir up change in the way we function and open ourselves up to co-create and connect around the globe. I invite all our participants and attendees to engage in our discussion today as we hear from our speaker on how TWU innovated to become a global Christian university. Our speaker, Dr. Mbenzi George, has just returned from Africa and would like to share about how one of TWU's innovative services is being received. Dr. Mbenzi is a sessional professor in leadership and co-director of MA Leadership Business Stream and director of international engagement for Africa. Inducted into the prestigious Phi Alpha Alpha in 2011, he holds a doctorate in public policy administration. He is a proven visionary and a strategic servant leader, adept at translating business strategies. He is an expert at enhancing organizational vision, developing strategic and entrepreneurial and global development initiatives. Dr. Mbenzi is the Honorary Consul General of Kenya in British Columbia and heads the Center for Global Leadership and Diplomacy in Canada. He will be hosted by Dr. Led. Dr. Phil Led has been a faculty member and administrator at Trinity Western University for over 25 years. As a researcher, Dr. Led focuses on moral reasoning, transgressive behavior, social judgments, and jury decision-making. For the past 20 years, Dr. Led has led many of the academic innovations at Trinity Western University, including the development of online learning, adult and international education, including TWU FAR centers. Currently, Dr. Led serves as Vice President of Innovation, Global and Academic Partnerships, and spends much of his time traveling around the world, developing new opportunities for students and academic partners to receive the high quality of education that TWU has been recognized for. Please welcome our speaker, Dr. Mbenzi George.
And good morning around the world. We are global. How innovation thinking has welcomed the world to Trinity Western University. On October 1st, 2021, while addressing delegates at the FAR Center inaugural opening at Bishop Stewart University in Mbarara, Uganda, Dr. Mark Husband, Trinity Western Vice Chancellor and President, reminded those in attendance of what we at Trinity Western University have known for a while. He said, "The world has changed, but the future has not." reaffirming TWU vision of adapting to global changes during the pandemic while still meeting the needs of students from over 60 nations from around the world. While most institutions around the world made the choice and decision to shut down and send students home due to lack of and use of alternative technology, TWU envisioned a possible future where interruptions were minimal. First, TWU looked internal to a vast resource of community of faith and professionals in both its faculty and staff. Our IT department was at the heart of this massive drive. Its coordination with online teams and able instructional designers would transform the brick-and-mortar traditional academic approach to a virtual, seamless engagement. Here at Trinity Western University, learning platforms like Moodle are being used, as well as cloud solutions providing the backbone of our work around the global community. You see, at Trinity Western University, we don't just talk transformation, we practice transformation. The concept of transformational leadership calls each one of us to move from the I to the we. With this collective team approach, Trinity Western University has been able to weather the pandemic storm and continues to meet the needs of its students. This then affirms the idea when we say we are global and have engaged innovational thinking to welcome the world to Trinity Western University. It is difficult to provide solutions to the world around us if we are not fully engaged in our own setting and have the capacity to offer alternatives. According to research by Overseas Research Institute, we are reminded that COVID-19 pandemic has presented what is undoubtedly one of the greatest challenges ever faced by academic institutions, international development, and humanitarian organizations. There have already been major consequences for the world's poor and vulnerable in terms of direct impact of the public health crisis on health and mortality, and indirect impacts on education, social, economic, and political systems. To create a solution, we at Trinity Western University envisioned a world where education and academic resources would become readily available around the global community through engagement with partners and active students. How did we do this? Point one, we began by training, coaching, and learning facilitators both in Canada and around the world. Second, we installed learning labs in campuses and facilities in partner locations around the world. Third, we deployed learning coaching facilitators to complement the work of instructors and professors by merging both virtual and face-to-face sessions. This has included foreign nationals. For example, today we are training coaching facilities out of Lagos, Nigeria. If pandemic has taught us anything, it is this call to be present and to be fully engaged. As President Mark Husband said, the world has changed, but the future has not. We no longer have the luxury of cut and run if there's a crisis. That's why we're training facilitators in these countries to continue their educational work. Fourth, providing a reduction of cost to a tune of 50% in both undergraduate and graduate programs offered through our FAST centers. This means a student can complete and earn a full degree from Trinity Western University from home country. Point five, we developed the 96-hour marathon with agents, making admission seamless, where students didn't have to wait for 2 or 3 months to get a response. 6, we developed GXP program where a student can complete the first 2 years in the home country and then transition to Canada for the final 2 years, which making the cost quite minimal. 7, this is exciting for me. We developed Open Gate program that takes university right into the high school, a first for Trinity Western University. In reflecting on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals target for 2030, Trinity Western University, like many institutions involved in working towards SDGs, need to be efficient and integrated with multidisciplinary and cross-sector approaches to problem solving. There are many examples of established and emergent non-government organizations working in alliance with corporations and government bodies. To realize the SDGs, it is imperative to address their interrelationships, requiring collaboration, coordination, and integration at the highest level of leadership. The World Bank is actively working with Ministry of Education in dozens of countries in support of their efforts to utilize educational technologies of all sorts to provide remote learning opportunities for students. So the first country I want to talk about is China. On February 9th, 2020, nearly 200 million primary and secondary school students in China started their new semester online. With all schools closed due to the coronavirus outbreak, the country embarked on what might amount to the largest simultaneous online learning exercise in human history. You see, the Ministry of Education launched an initiative entitled Ensuring Learning Undisrupted When Classes Are Disrupted. Over the course of 2 weeks, with all face-to-face meetings banned, the ministry organized teleconferences with management agencies, online platform and course providers, telecommunication providers, and other stakeholders to plan the implementation of the initiative. To enable this, the Ministry of Education partnered with the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology in order to, first, mobilize all major telecom service providers to boost internet connectivity service for online education, especially for the underserved regions. More than 24,000 online courses have been made accessible for university students. Schools and teachers are advised to choose appropriate modes of delivery based on local e-readiness, including online platform, digitalized TV or mobile apps. Teachers have received guidance on teaching methodologies, including through live streaming online tutorials and MOOCs. They have strengthened online security through collaboration with telecom sector and online platform service providers, provision of psychosocial support, and courses to impact knowledge about the virus and protection against it. Second country that I would like to reflect on is Kenya. The Ministry of Education shared guidelines for enhancing teaching and learning for its 15 million students out of school as a result of school closure. From March 23, 2020, 4 main platforms were used to deliver educational programs and resources to learners. First, in partnership with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, radio programs are being broadcast all weekdays in multiple radio channels around the country. Second, educational television broadcasts began on the EDU channel owned by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Broadcasting schedules for television and radios are available also on their website. Third, these television programmings were made available as live stream as well as on-demand content. Fourth, learners continue to access digital learning resources from the Kenya Educational Cloud, hosted and curated by Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. In partnership with the Kenya Publishers Association, electronic copies of textbooks have been made available for free on the Kenya Educational Cloud for all students. In order to provide wide internet coverage to all students and families, the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, in partnership with Alphabet Inc. and Telecom Kenya, has been having Google Loon balloons floating over Kenya airspace carrying 4G base stations. Loon is a network of balloons that provide internet connectivity to rural and remote communities. The high-altitude balloons create an aerial wireless network with up to 4G light speed. Users connect to the balloon's network using a special internet antenna attached to their buildings. A single balloon can provide internet connectivity across an 80-kilometer diameter. Good governance supports equal rights, and fairness creates the ability for a nation to prosper. This could mean the intertwining of a nation's survival on how well a government treats and meets the needs of its citizens. What are the critical takeaways? The advancing role of information technology for me is important. Information communication technology capacity including internet, plays an integral role in the economies and development of lesser developing countries, especially those that are reliant on international banking and exporting of goods. Creating and upgrading international standards in specific ICT interventions will be of great benefit, especially at the regional level, where donors such as the World Bank provide loans to donors and private investors who can invest in and promote infrastructure development. This will lower the cost of communication within poor regions, and that will assist scientific fields by creating regional communication networks. Development agencies acknowledge the imperative of rural access to ICTs in achieving sustainable development. The United Nations Development Programme suggests that strengthening rural telecommunication must be treated as central perimeter for any sustainable human development strategy aimed at poverty reduction and elevation. The World Bank emphasized the need of poor villages to have access to information so they can participate in markets and within civil society by monitoring local governments. When the use of ICT is fully realized in developing nations, there'll be alignment with sustainable development goals. It is an implementation tool for the SDGs to ensure that globalization becomes a positive force for everyone by increasing the promotion of gender equality and women's empowerment as ways to combat poverty, hunger, and disease, to stimulate sustainable development, and by ensuring that the benefits of new technologies are available to all. You see, ICT promote women's socioeconomic status because they promote literacy, entrepreneurship, freedom of expression, participation in formal and formal association, and access to information and education. What is the future outlook and what are the expectations? What are the implications of countries like Kenya and India with very young populations? Take Kenya, for example. 54% of the population is under the age of 25. In 30 years, we'll have a country whose middle age will be experiencing hunger crisis of biblical proportions. Now let's look at regional distribution of world's hunger. Asia and the Pacific make up 62%, Sub-Saharan Africa 26%, Latin America 6%, Middle East 4%, and developed countries like Canada only make up 2%. With the world population set to hit 9 billion by 2050, in an increasingly arid globe, what we now call crisis may become the status quo. But we can be part of the solution, and education drives us to that place. You see, colleagues, global security issues will not be from external sources, but will be internally driven. And that's why we must be present. Two last points. Emerging economies. Emerging economies are regions that, through limited industrialization, have become information-based through technology advancement. Under the framework of emerging economies, the non-industrialized nations' economies grow at unparalleled speed due to telecommunication, information technology, and alternative energy. The second area is governance. Governance is the active role of leadership as representatives of country citizens that asserts power over performance standards that meet countries' needs and priorities and secures education, economic, social, and environmental development goals at national and international levels. At Trinity Western University, we are global and continue to show how innovation thinking has welcomed the world to Trinity Western University. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mbenzi, for that great talk on how innovation has driven Trinity Western University forward as it's increasingly become a global Christian university. Now, I know you've just returned from Africa, and you spoke about that in your talk. I'd like you to just share maybe some of the experiences as we start into the questions of what it was like to travel to Africa and go through the experience of, a place that you know well, but now in the pandemic, what it's like to travel to different countries and interface with different people now around the world.
Phil, Africa this time around has been different, and especially traveling in 7 different countries. Before, it was easy to get to an airport, you go through, but going through the experience of where you have to show your COVID PCR certificate and then go through the whole process. Africa doesn't have a lot of resources, but they're very resilient when it comes to protocols with healthcare, which for me, I found in the beginning tough because of frustrating, a lot of waits, but they have to do it right because they don't have the capacity if there's an outbreak in the continent. So for me, that aspect, even though it was a little bit hard, I did appreciate it because I felt safe that they were taking health issues seriously. And so arriving in Africa and first of all being in Uganda, going through the experience of looking at the COVID protocols, going to Nigeria, going to Ethiopia, and going to Kenya, it was consistent where the countries are actually very much concerned about the health and well-being of their people. Going back to Africa this time around was to look at what is happening with our partners in Africa, the Trinity engagement. And it was exciting to be in Uganda where we were launching our FAR Center. The government of Uganda had accredited Trinity Western University to be able to offer degrees, master's degrees in leadership, health, and education in the country. And so to participate in that and see Trinity engaged in the continent, for me, that was exciting.
That's great. Yeah. Now, I'd like you to talk a little bit. We've traveled together for a long time, and we know each other well. And we've spoken about the digital divide, the divide between countries and people when it comes to digital technology and resources. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the digital divide and how we can work to support people from different countries around the world who may not have the resources that we would have here in North America. And I want you to talk about the increasing health divide that we're finding. We have lots of vaccines here, but that's not the case in other countries around the world. And how might we here in North America or in Western countries support those two things to help even the playing field around the world?
I want to take it off from the health issues or health divide. You see, in Canada, in British Columbia, we've got more vaccines that are readily available. I got my second vaccine, so I'm fully vaccinated. And then our province is talking about going to boosters in January. Uganda, where Trinity is engaged in, especially in Barare, a population of 2 million people with less than 1% vaccinated. And that message goes across Nigeria, Kenya, Ethiopia, where access to vaccine is not readily available. So I struggle with this idea where we are moving to a third dose when countries around the world haven't even received that first dose. So I wish our governments, I wish our leaders would look more how they can support these emerging economies, because it's only in a healthy environment that I believe we can all flourish. If our brothers and sisters in Africa don't have the resources and the capacity to really create a healthy environment, it doesn't matter how much Canada we've progressed, we're still lagging behind because it is not fair what is happening to the rest of the world. And when it comes to digital divide, Trinity has been good in setting up the FAR centers with technology, but we can just do so much. But I looked in Uganda, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and even Kenya, and I realized very quickly that the capacity to make technology available to even rural communities is going to be key for us to see real progress take place. We've always talked about, providing aid to developing nations, but I think we're reaching a time where say, if we can create an environment where skills development through education, like what Trinity is doing today, where we can empower the local community young people, the women in entrepreneurship with skills, then they can become self-reliant and they can begin to, make the economies flourish. What Elon Musk is doing is very different. When people think of Elon Musk, they go, this crazy guy who's doing some incredible stuff. But Elon Musk has developed, he's working on a cell phone right now, which is satellite. But when you look at his vision really for the rest of the world, especially areas where remote areas, the accessibility of technology and education is becoming so primary for him. I think in the next 5 years, if Elon Musk does what he's envisioned, the playing field when it comes to education and technology is going to be at an equal field. I'm excited to see what technology is going to do for Africa. The population is there, the capacity is there. They just need these basic steps in technology to be able to make education possible. And for me, that is exciting.
Yeah. Now that relates to the first question we have from Clifton Jones. So there's a connection between these. And the question is, how does Trinity Western University use TSL, and TSL is code for Transformational Servant Leadership, to influence social entrepreneurship within developing countries, especially Africa?
Oh, that's a great question. Cliff, and when I think of especially South Africa, where you're from, for me, I feel this idea, when we look at Africa and when we look at TSL, the idea of not thinking profit first, but empowering people and making them believe that you're not just there to plunder the resources, but you are there to help equip them with skills so that they can become economically, I'll use the term, free or able to use their entrepreneurial skills to get into the local markets, either in rural, in the city areas, and be able to transform the communities. TSL calls me to look within myself and see, I'm called to make a difference in the lives of people. Social change begins with me, to believe that it's not about me making profit, but it's me opening the world for those who are less fortunate and for being able to provide skills to be able to make their lives better. I'll give you an example. I took 5 colleagues and we all gave about $5,000 each. And we went to Barclays Bank. It's no longer functioning in Africa right now. It's been replaced by the name of Asana. And we offered the money to the bank and we go, we want you to loan this money to this local women's group, but we don't want you to charge them interest. My colleagues all had this TSL approach in believing that if they can take the money, they can be able to transform a community. It's been 5 years and the money just keeps on revolving. And these women are doing incredible stuff. What I see in Africa and parts of the world, not just in Africa, but in Asia, is when you empower people and you give them the capacity and you enable them to actually start off their transforming community. Africa is built on entrepreneurship. People need to be empowered, and that's what TSL is about.
Thank you so much. Question from Paul Chamberlain. Do you believe students in developing countries are ready and able to capitalize on Trinity Western University's new innovative strategies?
Paul, I'm looking at developing nations, especially in Africa and Asia, and I'm going, they have the capacity. The incredible stuff is happening with young people from around the world. You know, they have actually grown up with technology. And it's just that kind of a little bit extra push to get the right skills. So, for example, what Trinity is bringing to Africa, we've said students can take TWU studies at half the cost, 50%. You want to come to Canada, it's going to cost you, let's say, grad school, $30,000. You want to do that and you're 23, 24 years old in Africa, it's only going to cost you $11,000. We're helping young people skill up within their own context. And out of that, they're landing or they're able to land jobs that they can make a difference in the continent. You see, we want to be, I almost feel we're in the business, and I'm afraid to use that term, where we're empowering the next generation of African leaders that have got the skills and the capacity to actually transform emerging economies.
It's a great answer. And I think, if you look at what's happening in higher education right now, most African countries have a young population, in some cases 60% under the age of 30 years old. And so you see this huge opportunity to impact the next generation of leaders. And I don't think just in Africa. These are the next generation of leaders around the world. If we do a good job of equipping and enabling them to think of themselves as global citizens, they will be able to not just transform their own countries, but they'll have an impact all around the world. Kim Chen has a question. What excites you, I think for both of us, about the direction Trinity Western University is going in terms of ongoing innovation? What's exciting about where we're going right now?
Where we're going is making education possible in the global community. You see, when we move away from the brick and mortar classroom to using innovation to transform countries around the world, for me, that is so exciting. When you can bring a TWU classroom in the middle of Mbarare, which is on the border of Rwanda and Uganda, and a rural community where students are thriving, just using innovation to study in Canada and graduate with a Canadian degree. That is exciting for me. And it's not just in Africa, I see it in Asia, and eventually maybe it's going to start happening in South America. But what TWU innovation has begun in the global community is a first. I haven't seen a lot of universities out there doing what TWU is doing. And to me, I'm just glad to be a part of this exciting venture.
We've got a question from Uday Sandhu. The financial market sphere is a major driver of world economy and engagement. Since it is extremely volatile, I think, is the financial market sphere. It's realistically uncontrollable. How can we ensure the maximum risk is dissipated whilst ensuring we prosper as a unified entity? How do we address this challenge? I think the core of the question is, in a sort of volatile financial market, and I think we're talking now about ultra low interest rates in most countries, coupled with what's emerging now with supply chain disruptions and inflation, and the impact that has on the financial market system. How do we ensure that we are able to manage the risk and also all profit together as a unified entity without some profiting and others really struggling in this new economy?
That's a great question, and I wish I had an answer for you. I look from where we are and what we are trying to do. When you think of the global economy right now, it's the haves and the have-nots. That's kind of the thing that's been happening. We're in a pandemic right now. Countries are really, really struggling. Can IMF, can the World Bank be able to step back and say, okay, let's put a pause on loans and things that we need to get back from countries we've loaned money to, and let's create a stability. I think we almost need a 5-year stability on the global market and the economy to see if we can help countries re-jumpstart. It is risky right now. People are losing their jobs. Like we've got parents from Trinity, international parents, where it was easy for them to pay for their education for their kids, but they don't have those jobs anymore. Companies have shut down. And as Trinity, when we are looking out there, we go, how can we support our partners, the parents, our alumni to be able to stand? And so some of the steps I think I see Trinity doing really well is looking at its students and say, okay, maybe you can take a payment plan that will help you, but don't feel you have to come up with the entire tuition fee at once. So creating possibilities, little pockets where people feel supported and where it's not just we're draining, taking, but we're pausing, empowering, but systematically working with nations, with parents, with communities, with organizations to create a balance where people feel economically it's going to be okay because somebody is listening and people care. I think it's the caring part that we have to begin with to show the world and the communities that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's great. I've got a question here from Mopelola Eludbaja. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right, so I apologize. But the question is a really simple question. It's a great question. How does Trinity Western University enhance equity to good education? So equity becomes this really important concept, and you've mentioned different ways of providing equity. But I think the very nature of a FAR center and using digital technology is a way of trying to create equity, lower cost solutions to the students to get a high quality education. But I'd like your thoughts on other things we could do for equity.
Yeah, I do agree. And the other aspects is in terms of using some of the resources we have, besides just, let's say, doing education in a FAR center setting, but looking at struggling governments, struggling organizations around the world and say, we can come along and help equip, transform your organization from, let's say, the management aspect, the HR aspect, work along with you, help you develop skills so that your company can begin to grow. We want to be in the business of not just taking, but we want to be able to learn to give. Trinity has this heart of giving. I'm proud to be part of the Trinity team because the vision is not taking, but giving. So when I travel around the world, I see, what is my role? What can I do to actually make a difference? And for example, Ethiopia, incredible country. Ethiopia has over 100 million people, population of 100 million. Just the south part, the Oroma state, has 50 million people. Last week, I met with the Vice Chancellor of Oroma State University, and they've been tasked to train over 500,000 civil servants. And they turn to Trinity and go, can you help us with the capacity to do the training? And these are some of those things where we feel, we can work along with the government to help support them so that they can begin to be able to move as a nation and be able to prosper and build its own capacity.
Great, thank you. The last question before we wrap things up, and thank you so much for the great questions, and I encourage you in upcoming innovation sessions to ask your questions to really stimulate the discussion. Last question is from Janinder Katosh, and the question is it difficult to instigate people to have a visionary approach as far as the education system is concerned? And that follows up that his or her view is that most systems of education, most universities and countries focus on very present terms and don't think long-term to develop long-term capacity.
Well, Jatinda, as I see our approach to FAR centers, we're not just thinking today and tomorrow. We're thinking 5-10 years down the road. Most countries around the world, especially developing nations, it's a young generation. So under 30 makes 50% or 50% of the population. My encouragement is we are working towards this idea where we want to think of 10 years from now, will the FAR Center continue to sustain and help build nations and work with them to really grow?
That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbenzi. It's been great to have you here, and thank all of you, our attendees, for coming, providing your questions, stimulating the conversation. And it's great to hear about all of the innovative things Trinity Western University is doing in Africa, but we're doing innovative things all around the world, even here locally in Canada. And so it's just great to be able to have a glimpse at the things we're doing. We want to encourage you to continue to come to our innovation sessions. We're going to ask Sushil to come back now and wrap things up. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all very soon.
Our thanks to Dr. George Mbenzi and Dr. Led for that insightful discussion. We hope these conversations continue to guide and inspire leadership that is a leadership that is service-driven as we come together to collaborate and identify critical needs to regions and mitigate and manage the crisis that looms over our future. This was truly an eye-opener and a timely reminder of why we need to collaborate and listen to the needs of our clients and adapt our innovative solutions to address specific needs of the region, thereby addressing the well-being of those in need through education, skill mapping, and development. As teams learn to collaborate and merge core values together, we are able to enhance our decision-making and lead in authentic and accountable ways. Through these efforts, we are able to create win-win solutions. We invite you to keep us informed on pressing regional needs that need solutions. We hope these sessions give you the practical tools needed to apply leadership and innovative thinking in your respective domains. We invite you all to join the next installment, which will fall on November 18th, Pacific Standard Time. This is a special session where we will be intersecting our innovation series with our joint conference with our partnering institution in Chennai, India, Stella Maris University. The theme of this conference is Leading Innovation Towards Economy, Education, and Environmental Stewardship. Our very own Dr. Husbands will be giving the keynote address. The conference commences at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The innovation series will slot into the conference at its usual time at 11:10 Pacific Standard Time. That's 11:10 p.m. Owing to the clocks changing back in Canada, this will have an impact on these sessions and its launch time for our international partners by about an hour. Please note the new times on our upcoming invite. You are invited to attend the entire conference or log on for just the Innovation Series segment. Our speaker for the Innovation Series segment is our very own Patricia Victor, TWU Siam, who will be sharing her views on the topic Environmental Sustainability in an Age of Innovation, Indigenous Perspectives on Land and People. Registrations are now open for the conference. We hope to see you there. It's going to be an eye-opener, and as we engage in some real conversations that we hope to bring a deeper sense of interconnectedness with each of our communities. These conversations are a great way for us to hear from each other and integrate our cultures and ways of knowing as we advance the kingdom of God together. As our international students plan their life in Canada, we encourage you to hear these conversations on the rich, varied history of Canada that is giving every culture around the globe the place to reflect, realize, reconcile, build our lives, and converge our know-how into emerging new ways of life that is inclusive of every culture, be it sex, race, skill set, job level, and age. It's been a privilege to host you once again for this session. Stay tuned to our YouTube channel for promos on upcoming talks, and please subscribe to the channel. Signing off for episode 3 of season 2, this is Sushil Rajaratnam. Good evening and good night.